Welcome to Cohesive Home Podcast Episode 8. If you've ever wanted to create a simpler, happier childhood for your kids and shift your family's priorities in a new direction, today's podcast is for you.
Cohesive Home is a podcast for families seeking a more intentional life. Looking for inspiration to create your ideal family culture and home? Kate and Melissa, two best friends and laid-back minimalists from opposite ends of the country, chat about all things parenthood, living simply, and crafting a happier home.
So right now, it seems like the media absolutely loves talking about the typical American family. I have read so many articles about how our kids are overstressed, overscheduled, have no free time, and are drowning in toys. You can even Google the words overscheduled, stressed kids, and nearly 200,000 results will come up, including a quiz to see if your kids are too busy or not. What is going on with modern families?
Well, I think one of the reasons there are so many of these articles is because there's an actual need for help. With the invention of social media, we've inadvertently put stress and social pressure on each other to have more, be more, and definitely create a don't let our kids down mentality.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And I do feel like with the Great Recession, when there were so many college graduates who couldn't find jobs, it suddenly made us who are parents feel like the stakes got even higher. And so we ask ourselves, what does it take for our kids to be successful? Because of course, we want them to do well as adults and be happy.
Exactly. So much of our parenting journey has to do with making right decisions, like right now. It's immediate, right?
Exactly.
So, what kind of impact that's going to be on our kids' future. And it can be really, really overwhelming to figure out what's best for our children. But rather than focus on all the media hype and our fears, why don't we talk about the positive steps that we can take within our homes right now, no matter how old our kids are?
I love that, Melissa. We can panic and worry about so much, which I am definitely guilty of, or we can focus on just creating a positive childhood for our kids. And that's something, Kirk and I talk about often is what is our end goal for our girls? What do we hope for them as adults? I know this might sound naive or cheesy, but we really just want them to be confident in their decision making, to be loving to others, courageous and curious, but above all, happy. So if you're listening today, we want to encourage you to do the same and take some time to reflect on your hopes and dreams for your children. We do have an article on cohesivehome.com that addresses this, so definitely check it out.
Yeah, you definitely need to check out that article because it really helps you kind of look towards the future as well as staying in the present. So because when Brandon and I, when we look at the future for our kids, we definitely tend to lean more towards wanting our kids to be cultured and well-rounded people, just kind of that are open-minded and definitely, like you said, love others no matter what. So, that's the end goal. But Kate, what's the beginning? We know that our own childhoods often have a big impact on how we raise our own kids, but I don't know, what was your childhood like? How do you look to the past to kind of help your future?
Oh, that is such a good question. Okay, well, first, I do want to say I watched this video last night. It was a TED Talk about how much pressure we put on our own parenting journey, and that we've kind of, at least in the United States, we've somehow collectively come to this conclusion that the way we were raised isn't actually the way we want to do things. And so we're all kind of striving to find this better, more perfect way of raising kids, and we're causing so much anxiety.
Yeah, I don't get that. Our childhoods were pretty great.
Exactly.
Why do we want to make them even better? Anyway, so what did they say? What was it? I want to watch it too.
No, I will send it to you, Melissa, and we'll also post that in the show notes so that you all can watch it as well. But no, the conclusion was just that it's okay to look to your past and to take some of the pressure off of yourselves and just simply to love your children and to also cut yourself some slack.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right. And I actually, honestly, the childhood that we're, I suppose, developing or we're moving toward with the girls is, I would say, pretty similar to the way I grew up. I mean, I grew up in a small farming town. We had lots of freedom to ride bikes and walk everywhere. I did go to public school, and after school we played, usually until dinner time, and then often after dinner until it was nearly dark out. And during the summer when we were out of school, we played all day long.
Exactly.
We weren't inside. We had woods next to our house. There was a creek running behind our neighborhood, and there were wetlands and farms beyond that. So, I mean, it was just so cool as a kid to be able to explore all these areas. My parents weren't with me.
Yeah.
I mean, we ran around as a pack of kids from the neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
And I just feel so lucky to have that kind of childhood. I'm not exactly sure, though, Melissa, how I can replicate that with my own girls. I mean, yes, I am moving toward that, but I get scared. I get scared to, let them go. But I suppose as they get older, maybe I'll get more comfortable with giving them more freedom.
Yeah, I think age has a lot to do with it.
And Melissa, it's kind of weird. I actually don't know that much about your childhood. I mean, I know that you spent some of it in Pennsylvania, but
yeah.
I'm embarrassed to say that's kind of all I know.
It's okay.
Fill me in.
I don't go around talking about my childhood all the time.
Not usually.
So yeah, actually for the longest time, if someone had asked me like where I was from, I'd say Oklahoma and Pennsylvania. Because
right.
I was basically in Pennsylvania for about 5 years of my childhood, but it was such an important chunk of time that it felt much longer. There was it was from ages 4 to 9. And so, it was just kind of like those developmental years where there's a lot of your first memories are made. So, but it's very similar to you. I lived in a small farming town in the mountains. We were about an hour south of Elmira, New York. So if anybody's listening and you're familiar with that area, we were really close to Elmira. But just like you, I mean, we were always outside. We were running through cornfields or playing in piles of snow in the winter. But then when we moved to Oklahoma, it wasn't much different than that. We were outside all the time. After school, we had a creek in our backyard too. So we were in the creek, up and down that thing. I mean, we were collecting turtles, doing all of those, neighborhood
doing stuff kids should do.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Riding bikes with neighborhood kids and playing sports and all of those things. And one thing I have to say that I thought about recently,
yes,
was did you ever do this as a kid? But like fundraising, you would sell candy bars like door to door.
Oh yeah, I hated that.
I know, but do you realize I did that alone? Is that
No, you didn't.
Yes. I know that
your mom was like, "Okay, Melissa, good luck."
Yeah, have fun. Like, it was the neighborhood. It wasn't a big,
wow.
Yeah, and now like I can't even imagine. I can't imagine.
No.
Anyway, but
totally different.
I mean, looking back at my childhood, I mean, yeah, there were definitely some hard times. Maybe not it wasn't always rosy, but for the most part it was. Except after puberty, then that's like a whole different story, really.
We won't be talking about those years on the Cohesive Home podcast.
That's the black hole years.
Right. We'll just focus on childhood.
Yeah. Anyway, so.
But yeah, so basically what we're getting at here, as we've talked about our own childhoods, is that it's really important, but also there's room for imperfection. Mm-hmm. And so we do want to encourage you that when you're thinking about these things, to create your home in a way that supports your children to be their most creative and curious selves and to feel loved. So we think if you work toward those 3 things, the rest, all those little details that we get so stressed about, that's just icing on the cake. Don't worry about that. Just focus on helping your kids to be creative, building their curiosity, and helping them just simply feel loved.
Yeah, if you don't have a creek in your backyard, you need to go dig one right now.
Pressure.
Go Pinterest that.
Ooh, touche.
Okay. Ooh, okay. I dug myself a creek. So anyway,
someone might do it.
Yeah, they might actually. Send us a picture if you do.
Send us a
Anyway, but some of you listening might actually be wondering and thinking like, okay, so creating and developing an environment, if you're not going to build that creek, that encourages creativity, like how do you do that? And what exactly does it mean to be curious, right? So Kate and I want to dive a little deeper into these ideas. First is creativity. Often we think of creativity as being synonymous with being crafty or a good artist, which that's what I always assume as well. Mm-hmm. But it's actually more than that. Creativity is dreaming big and exploring new ideas through all of your senses. It's a child's, losing themselves in pretend play on a rainy afternoon, or if it's my kids, it's morning, noon, and night, basically. And for those of you who are simplifying or already living a pretty minimalist type life within your home, you may worry that it's going to be difficult to support these sort of creative endeavors and still live simply.
Oh, right. And I definitely do not think that that is the case because, we are advocates for having a carefully selected and simple collection of toys. And yes, the less, the better. We've talked before on Instagram about simplifying kids' spaces. And if you head over to our blog, we've written it up as a blog post, and we'll definitely link that in the show notes. So it may seem counterintuitive to limit a child's things, but something Melissa and I have both discovered about our kids is that the less distractions they have from their toys, the more imaginative they are. So we're just simply trying to create more space for our kids to develop their curiosity and to be creative with the things that surround them and not simply with just toys.
Right.
But what do you think, Melissa? How do you think we could encourage our kids to be more creative?
Well, I have one word, and that is freedom. Freedom. No, I mean, really, in that regard, I mean, don't hover. For instance, in Germany, one of the biggest things that I learned that I saw from other German parents was to let my kids be more adventurous at the playground. Mainly because German playgrounds are absolutely crazy. I mean, the height and the just sheer magnitude of some of these are just crazy. But I should say my kids sort of got hurt quite a bit. But the good thing
Melissa.
I know, I'm sorry. They did. I mean, it wasn't on purpose. I was just allowing them to play. Yeah. Anyway, but the good thing, the good thing I saw about this was the lack of helicopter parenting. They just kind of let their kids explore. I mean, within parameters, obviously, but they would let them learn balance, on these crazy high balance beams. And I mean, as an American, it was really, really good for me to see because I feel, and I could be wrong, but I feel like Americans a lot of the time are programmed to be fearful.
Yes.
It's how they sell us things. It's just something that's kind of ingrained in us is to be fearful. And that translates into how we parent.
Yes, I absolutely agree because when we are fearful of things, then that keeps us from having new experiences because we can always come up with a million reasons why we shouldn't do something or why we shouldn't let our children do something because of fear. Mm-hmm. And I would say that's something, I'm really in the thick of the playground years with a 2 and a 5-year-old. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely notice it at the playground where I see kids and they are barely taking one step away from their parents before they're getting yelled at to be careful. Like, be careful. And the kids are just running across the little gravel pebbles on the playground. And I know as parents, we all have our limits of what we're comfortable with. And maybe I'm comfortable with a little bit more risk, but that's because I have seen how my daughters do with that increased confidence they get from trying something new. And I'm always there, physically there to catch them if they fall.
Yeah.
But I do try to hold back from constantly yelling, be careful, or to say, don't do that, you might get hurt, because we get hurt in life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a valuable lesson for them to learn how to handle those types of situations.
Definitely. Okay, so we've talked about cultivating curiosity definitely through freedom. I really think that that is the best way to show your kids or to allow your kids to have that curiosity is give them some freedom, whether that's on the playground or even doing things in the kitchen, which I find that's probably hardest for me.
It's difficult to give our kids that freedom because it's scary. It's scary to see, like, what if they fail? What if they get hurt? But Melissa, our kids need opportunities to test their limits and to also learn that they are strong and they are brave. I mean, we want them to grow up to be confident in themselves and not terrified of the world outside their house.
Oh, I absolutely agree. Because they hear that a lot from what we say
Right.
too. The things that we talk about. So I have to guard that a lot. But so figure out sort of what you can handle and definitely be intentional about creating that freedom of exploration for your kids. But above all, we want to encourage you to remember the value of just that unconditional love. I mean, listen, no parent is perfect, and neither are your children. Kate and I are far from perfect, and we have pretty totally normal kids, I'm pretty sure. pretty normal.
My kids are gifted and special and talented. Just kidding. They're normal, and I love them.
They're like off the charts awesome.
Right.
We both believe that speaking that love and just affirmation and being positive, all of those things into our kids' hearts every single day is probably absolutely the most important thing you can do. And you probably all already know that. I mean,
Right.
but because like decluttering your home, traveling with your kids, giving them more freedom, none of that matters if they don't know that they're loved, right? I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer, but it needs to be said.
Oh, exactly. And you know what? Honestly, it is a really tough thing to do. It's one thing to say, I love my kids unconditionally. And I do. I love my girls with my whole heart. But I can definitely be short-tempered and I get frustrated easily. Parenting is so tough, especially with little kids. And I feel like I am constantly learning my own boundaries. But when I make an intentional effort to make sure that their hearts really are brimming with love, that they feel it, they truly feel it through my words and my actions, those are actually the days that go so smoothly. And our home is happier when we are intentional about that and just love on one another.
So, bottom line today, friends, it's not too late to create a simpler, happier childhood for your kids. Find ways to simplify your home to encourage creativity, get outdoors, and let them have some freedom. And pour loads of unconditional love into their hearts. Thanks for listening to Cohesive Home Podcast, Episode 8. We'll see you next time.